What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today we're looking at the reboot of a character who is celebrating his 30th anniversary, and that character is Evil Ernie in issue number 1. So as I mentioned, this character is celebrating his 30th anniversary because I believe it was December of 91 when he first debuted. So I mean, we're already full circle, right around to 30 years. So they decided to go ahead and give him a whole new type of story, I'm assuming because they've changed a few things here. Granted, I haven't kept up with everything that's come out from him, in the last few years, but I do know a little bit here and there of this particular character, but I do know that they've changed a few things here. So let's just kind of get directly into the story itself. We start out with the cops coming across this guy who is just kind of like freaking out, and the female cop is trying to figure out, okay, what's the matter, what's going on, and the dude is just like, he's drunk, like he's freaking out because he knows we're going to arrest him because he's driving drunk and shit, and the guy just tries to like point them to something that's horrific over there. So she's saying like, he looks terrified. He's like, yeah, I bet he's scared we'll find his bottle of Jack. So he's like, let's see what all the hoopla is, and then he like looks and he sees this, where, yeah, he definitely had a reason to be terrified because, I mean, my God, look at the gore and destruction. I love it. I mean, it's terrifying. So anyway, the cop starts freaking out too, because then he looks up and he starts having the same reaction the dude was having when he sees this one who's not only been disemboweled, but is now hanging by his entrails. So we see that, and they both start freaking out. The girl cop starts screaming, and then all of a sudden, Ernie, or Ernest, as he prefers to be called here in this first issue, he wakes up and he's kind of like disheveled. His clothes are all ripped up. He's covered in blood, and he has no idea what the hell's going on. So he also has, if you don't know anything about Evil Ernie, he has a smiley face button, just known as Smiley, the psychotic button, and that's basically like the source of his powers, or the conduit for his powers, depending on like which story you're like reading or whatever. So it's Smiley that wakes him up by saying, "Rise and shine, dipshit." So he's like waking up and he's like, "Cripes, a regular wordsmith," huh? Because he's not using any actual words just yet. So he sits up and he's all freaked out because he has no idea what the hell's going on. He obviously sees himself covered in blood, sees his clothes all ripped up. He's like, what the hell's going on? He can't remember what happened. Then he turns and sees these cops, and the dude cop starts throwing up, which, I mean, I guess does kind of make sense, because not only does a dead body like look terrifying, but I mean, when you disembowel someone, like literally disembowel them, the smell, the stench that comes from that, it's not pretty. It's definitely not pretty. So anyway, he starts throwing up. The woman cop is still saying, like, I don't understand who could have done this. And then he's just saying, like, who? More like what? So Smiley is like, yeah, you're getting warmer. So he's starting to have, like, flashbacks as to what happened. We don't actually see, though, the way that he looks. You can imagine how he looks from the cover. You can already kind of guess. But anyway, like, on the inside, he doesn't really remember. Like, he just kind of has flashes of these things happening. So he's thinking that it's a nightmare at first, and Smiley tells him he's getting colder. So then he's like, does someone dose my drink? And he's like, polar bear cold. So we keep seeing like more of the destruction, and then he Smiley tells him, hint, it rhymes with mammary. So he's like, memory? He's like, there you go. So he says, you're saying I did all that? So of course he starts freaking out as like ambulances and more cops start showing up. He's like, oh shit, I have to hide. So Smiley's telling him, suck it up, Buttercup, it's time to get the hell out of here. So he's like, or you could stay and confess, I'm sure that'll work. So he's like, no, you're right, I can't say anything until I can make sense out of this. And he's like, oh yeah, I can't wait, Smiley says. So he takes off running, and then we kind of get the flashback as to how all of this started, where we see, like I said, in the original, his name was Arthur Fairchild. Here, they've changed his name to Arthur Gleckman, so I'm assuming he's Jewish now, because Gleckman, that would be Jewish, right? Anyway. So he's saying, like, he's 18 years old. Potsdam University has been my home for 2 semesters now. He's like, yes, I'm a sophomore. My first year, I was lonely as all get out, just another kid a long way from home. I tried everything I could think of to fit in. Everything except that one thing that actually worked, just being me. So they kind of pull back, and we see where he's actually trying to campaign to be, like, class president or whatever the hell, but nobody really cares all that much. And so he finishes what he's saying. The, like, teacher or professor or whatever is telling him, like, well, you still have, like, 2 more minutes. He's like, no, I'm all right. I said everything I needed to say. And so he's like, okay, our next candidate is, and then he like walks off. So Ernie has this girlfriend who runs up to him and is saying like, you have the election in the bag, Ernest, and her name is Candace. So he's like, and you're not being partial on account of I'm your boyfriend or whatever. She's like, well, I'm sure she doesn't think that hurts or whatever. She says, so what if I am? It just means I know firsthand you have a heart as big as all outdoors. So they're being very saccharine here in the beginning to kind of contrast just how evil he is whenever he's in his evil Ernie persona. So anyway, he's saying, I'm just afraid that what it will happen if people learn about my double life. So she's like, so you love heavy metal rock. It isn't nearly as controversial as you think. And so she's saying, like, we don't live in the last century when people blamed all of society's ills on each generation's musical proclivities, which, I mean, yeah, that's what happened back in like the 80s and stuff. So I mean, you can tell, what type of music I listen to. So I mean, I've studied like how people were. Well, I didn't really have to study it. I just kind of like I've read books, I've seen documentaries, I've seen a lot of stuff about the way that like the Satanic Panic went back in the 80s, even into the 90s. Like there was, people just freaking out about what type of music their kids were listening to. That's why everyone thought Marilyn Manson was literally the devil. So I kind of get where he's coming from if this is set in that type of era or whatever. But anyway, he's telling her like, I guess you're right. Now it's all about the internets and fake news. So she's like, yeah, exactly. So have a great time tonight or whatever. So she goes and gives him a kiss before leaving. He's like freaking out like, oh, did you just kiss me? She's like, yeah, I mean, you're my boyfriend or whatever. So he's saying like, yeah, I just don't really, I'm not all that comfortable with like public displays of affection and shit like that. So she's telling him like, baby steps, we'll get you there. Send me a text after you're set. So he's walking through the halls, and all the guys are like, like greeting him and shit. And they call him Ernie, but he's like, no, 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 please. The name is Ernest or whatever. So he's saying, I've never been a fan of the diminutive version. Then all of a sudden he sees a hanger on the doorknob, which is the sign from his roommate, like, yo, I'm getting busy, so don't just come barging in. So he walks up to the door and he just kind of like politely knocks and is like, hey, I know you're kind of busy at the moment, but I just need like a change of clothes for my set tonight. Is it okay if I just like walk in real quick? Door opens, friend like or roommate like throws his clothes at him and slams the door. So he's like, all right, yeah, thanks, that's all I needed. So anyway, he says that went better than usual. And then we cut over to where we see he's at this like metal club, I guess, where he's getting ready to perform and shit. So he's in there, and then he's like listening to the other band saying like, they're so good, they make every amateur sound amazing. I hope I'm not the exception. So he's kind of standing at the bar, and then the bartender slides over like a beer to him and everything, and he's even asking like, what the heck? So she's like, a mug of liquid courage from the mistress of the house. And he's just like, he kind of gulps or whatever. So she says, I'm Ronique, the owner of this place. And he's like, I appreciate the offer, but lips that touch liquor. Besides, I'm too young to drink. So he's starting to get on my damn nerves with the way that he's acting right now. But I mean, I get it. I get what the point of this is. It's just still annoying. So anyway, they get ready to like introduce him, and he doesn't have any sort of like stage name. He just goes by his actual name, which is Ernest Gleckman. So they like call him up, and he gets ready to go up there. And then he's saying, like, is this crazy? To which the bartender says, most things worth doing are. So she's the one who puts Smiley on his, like, jacket or whatever, and then she gives him a kiss. So he's all, like, obviously kind of smitten a little bit because she just kissed him. So he walks away. And then he gets up on stage, he starts, like, performing. We see he's even singing about, like, Satan and shit like that. So, I mean, he is really into it. He's wearing, like, a Megadeth shirt and everything, which is part of the, like, Evil Ernie, like, canon or whatever, if you know. Part of his whole thing is that he's trying to, well, in the past, he was trying to, like, bring about Megadeth, not the band, but, like, actual Megadeth. So, I mean, that, because he was trying to kill everybody on Earth. That was his whole mission. So, I mean, it's kind of like a little callback right there, and the fact that he is a metal fan. So, they have that in there, and then they actually kind of cut away and look back at the bar to show that the bartender's gone. So he finishes his set, he gets off, and everybody's saying like they love him and everything, asking him where is he gonna play next. And he's like walking away like, wow, that was a real blast. As we can see this evil shadow kind of like behind him, and the moon kind of takes on like a Smiley the Psychotic Button's face and everything. So he's riding home on his little scooter and shit, right? Just kind of like still in his little head zone, like, that was really great, everybody loved me and everything. So he's saying like he can't wait to text his girlfriend. He says, I'm the most blessed guy in the world, or what? And then all of a sudden he gets set upon by an actual like biker gang and shit, and they start talking shit to him, calling him a putty tat, kind of like Tweety Bird. And he's asking them, like, who are you talking about? And they're like, well, you're the only one on the road and shit. So all of a sudden he's saying, like, you need to get away because I'm losing control of my scooter. And they're like, well, then maybe you shouldn't be on the road, putty tat. And the dude literally kicks him, sending him careening off of the damn side. And it's not just bad enough that he ends up, like, probably breaking multiple bones, but then he gets impaled on a damn tree limb and then falls down again as his like scooter falls down and explodes, which I didn't know scooters could explode. But anyway, his does, and then we see where he's literally just there, all bloodied, broken, disemboweled, still impaled with the tree branch and shit. And that's where Smiley is sitting there just like, whew, that was a close one. And he kind of just starts laughing and shit, so that's where we actually leave off on this for now. But as you could have seen, like, from the beginning of the issue, obviously, he gets back up, I'm assuming through the power of Smiley, and proceeds to just kill all of the bikers. So we're going to see exactly how, I'm assuming, how that'll kind of play out in the next issue. We'll see what actually happens. Overall, I think it's going to be pretty interesting how this is going to play out. Like I said, he was getting on my damn nerves with what a goody two shoes he was and everything, but you know what, I can forgive it because, like I said, it's supposed to contrast. Like, in his normal persona as Ernest, he's very like the good boy, and then as Evil Ernie, obviously he's this satanic serial killer. So I mean, that's supposed to be like, it's sort of like that Enchantress type of thing, like between June Moon and the Enchantress. Like, June Moon is very just like good girl, very quiet to herself, and then when she's an Enchantress, she's like a straight up evil bitch. So I mean, that's kind of what we have going here, and I guess it does make sense. So I'm hoping to see more of Evil Ernie and less of Ernest, quite honestly, because he annoys the shit out of me. But we'll see what ends up happening. So I don't know if anybody out there happened to pick up this first issue of Evil Ernie, or if you were even thinking about it. Definitely feel free to share your comments with me down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then definitely make sure that you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed. If you would like to share out the video, you know how much I do appreciate that. I tell you all the time because I really do appreciate it. So feel free to do that. And if you're done here, then go and read a book, possibly this one. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.